Hello and welcome to the 6 Plus show, a podcast for your wargaming and 40k needs. Hobby talk, tactics, tournament reports, lore and much more. We have it all. Please welcome your host for the evening, Tom.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and towering bipedal engines of war to that 6 Plus show. I'm your host, Tom. And tonight I'm joined by my very good friend and longtime 40k co-conspirator, Andrew Bourbon. Welcome, Andrew. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Very well, thanks.
Very nice to have you on. I've been very excited about this because tonight we're going to talk about an army that I've never fully understood. All I've ever done is break against it for better or for worse, and that is the Imperial Knights. Now, Imperial Knights are iconic. They're a very distinct army in 40k with the enormous sort of towering Titanic units, and we wanted to strike for our State of Play series whilst the iron is hot, and the new book is only relatively recently out and about and is making waves and taking names, and talk about Imperial Knights more broadly and how they're getting on and how you as an expert knight, but probably expert Imperium player, I think it's fair to say. I think you've got a very good coverage of pretty much all of the Imperium as far as I can see. How you found them and what you think about them. So what I always make people do first is their origin story. So that's where we're going to start. I'm going to start with a little anecdote about you, because I think one of the first times I met you in person was at Summer Slaughter, just after we'd just been allowed to come back outside, right? We're just down in that sweaty basement in summertime. We've just been allowed to play 40k again after ages. And you had turned up with a bunch of knights, including a Megara and a bunch of stuff that at the time was absolutely not hot property, but you absolutely smashed your way through that event, as I remember it, and had an excellent time, an excellent showing on the Knights. And that's my first memory of you playing Imperial Knights. But tell people what your origin story with 40k more broadly, but certainly with Imperial Knights is. Where do they appear in the picture for you?
Yeah, that was a fun event. I think I finished third at that one.
You had a great run, and that was like in the midst of like Drakari
really
summer.
Fun.
I think it was pretty good. Like
it was good fun. It was good fun. Yeah, so I played second edition 40k.
Yeah.
I'm cracking on a bit these days.
Oh wow, nice.
I played second edition and then stopped when I went to university.
Yeah.
And the story's quite funny, I suppose. I was helping a friend move house and unpacking boxes.
Yeah.
And unpacking boxes, opened this box of Warhammer, and I was like, "Do you play Warhammer?" So yeah, do you play Warhammer? I was like, "Yeah, I love Warhammer." And both of us played second, and then both of us hadn't played since. And neither of us had ever told each other in the 8 years we'd known each other that we
It's a
play
secret.
Warhammer.
It's always a secret,
It's
right?
a secret, yeah, dark secret. And and so we thought, well, we've done a lot of work here. Let's nip down to GW. So we took a walk down to GW in town.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it was the day that 8th launched.
Oh wow! Amazing.
On 8th launch day, and so I was looking through stuff. Oh, this looks really cool.
Yeah.
We should buy a rule book and have a game. So we bought a rule book, and I think my friend Nick at the time, he's looking at me like, "Oh, I know what you're like. This isn't just going to be a one game. You're going to get stuck into this." But I remember as I walked in, there was this model on the side in the cabinet. There's always a cabinet at the front painted models.
Yeah.
And in second edition, we didn't have these things.
No, I don't remember them.
I was like, what is that?
It is
and
huge.
from that point onwards, I knew I had to have one. I was like, that's something I really want to go with. And it was pretty soon after that, I made the decision that I wanted to play some competitive 40k.
Yeah.
So I played. I think I played 3 games, and I bought a tournament ticket.
Yeah. No. Wow. Amazing. That's keen, man.
Super keen.
Yeah.
I'm like, right, I've got a ticket. I've got 3 weeks. What can I paint in 3 weeks? No. So it was a combination of just falling in love with the models. I didn't really know about the lore at this point.
No.
Didn't know sort of, the backstory of Knights. I just knew I loved the models. I was always, when I played in second, I played Blood Angels. I was a Blood Angel player.
Oh, nice.
And I've always been a kind of loyalist sort of player.
Yeah. You're always on about purging chaos whenever it comes up in our chats. You're always
any opportunity.
kill it with fire.
Absolutely. So yeah, just took the Knights and took an absolutely terrible list, and did all right with it. Actually, it was quite good. Won the first game against a good player, and I was like, "Ooh,
nice."
Sort of modelled my way through it, and and then really just, I think because I'd started, so I finished. I was determined to try and make the Knights work.
Yes.
And I did. I mean, I did make the sort of changes to sort of make the Knights more competitive through the meta. There was periods where you'd be running them with some guardsmen, or
because it was a more soup-friendly era, wasn't it?
It was a very soup-friendly era, and I remember going particularly well with sort of Punisher tank commanders, guard knights combinations, and actually the Summer Slaughter one was 3 Majera. I think it was 2 squads of 4 Custodes.
Yes, there was some Custodes involved, and
a fight captain or something like that. And that progressed as well. That list progressed and made some tweaks and had some sort of Sisters of Silence for a bit of deny. It got quite good, that list. It was really fun. Of course, then they pulled the plug on Soup.
Yes, they did.
And at that point, I'd been playing them for some time, and I just love playing big stompy robots.
Yeah,
and I noticed that the Grey Knights book had dropped, and I read the codex. And I was like, my word, these Dread Knights look a bit silly.
Yeah.
And to me, it was like, oh, this looks like playing Knights, and you can have 5 of them, and that's still only half your army.
Yeah.
So then played Grey Knights. Obviously, went to LGT and went really well at LGT.
You had a very good run with the Grey Knights.
Had a really good run. I think I missed out on ITC best Grey Knight by half a point or something. So it was, I had a really good season. Placed really well, but the whole time, I think the great thing about Grey Knights is they teach you to play the game.
They really do.
In a way that Knights don't. Knights are a really great army for learning and addition, because actually you see the kind of maximum offensive output of all of your opponents because they're focused on taking you out. So I think
they have to use it.
A great way to learn the game. But they've never necessarily offered you the most sort of jank play, if you like.
Yes.
But they're super unforgiving of mistakes. And I think people play Knights don't always play Knights with the care that they need to be played with. No. It's because all you've really got is movement, a shooting phase, and a combat phase.
Yeah, and some big boys. Yeah,
and the playing Grey Knights taught me so much about playing the game, because you're active in every phase.
Yeah,
you've got decent combat output, decent shooting output, but no one phase is your output. Sort of, going to table something. You have to use multiple phases. You have to use movement, and it's funny with the latest iteration of the Knights how even though they're completely different, it doesn't necessarily feel so different to play, because I think you almost have to think of an Armiger as being 10 models or a squad or something like that. It's a completely different way of playing, but it was fantastic to play the Grey Knights. It really helped me to play the game that people used to play against me, so it was great. And then this book dropped. This one here, dropped.
Yeah, there it is. Very nice. I haven't got it for the shelf. It's not one I actually own. It's very rare that there's a book I don't own. But I don't have it.
It's funny because when it came out, I was a bit gutted. Because I read the Chaos one, I was like, "Oh yeah, Chaos! Look at these Chaos Knights."
That was the noise, right? The noise was that Chaos got all the toys, and that Imperials weren't quite as spicy. That was how people felt.
And it just felt so. It felt like it was quite clear that they were absolutely horrendous in combat. It's so strong in combat, but also were a pretty solid shooting army. And I got the Knights book, and I sort of started reading through it and thinking to myself, actually, you know what? There's some magic in here.
Yes,
there's some magic in it. And I remember reading the Exalted Court bit, which is, and if you sort of from the lore perspective, you'd have the kind of head knight who would be known as the Knight Baron if it was a imperial house, whatever. And then below, and they're like a noble that's elected to lead on a planet. And then there's a bunch of sort of landed gentry, landowners, who are the Exalted Court.
Right. Okay.
And so you pay this upgrade to become this Exalted Court knight. And again,
I get you.
They sort of they're so powerful that when they're controlling a knight, they can actually effectively almost take control of an Armiger. That's seen as an honourable thing. It's not seen as a dishonourable thing, like that you're being controlled by this. It's a kind of servitude, an honourable servitude thing.
Yeah.
And saw this Exalted Court, and I thought, oh, wow, there's some goodness in this. And my first thought, the immediate thought was Armigers is where the strength are.
Yes,
in this list, I was really disappointed by the Questoris Knights. Disappointed by Majera, because I have 3 4-year-old Majera and a 4-year-old Styrics. That which is they're 145 quid a pop or something. That's a lot of money.
How are they integrated into this book? Do they get to play around with the same things that the main ones do?
You can put all of the stuff on them. But so the way that the Questoris Knights work, each Questoris Knight has a particular buff that it can place onto an Armiger as this thing called bondsman ability.
Yeah,
and it's that bond that exists between the sort of pilot of an Armiger, the pilot of a Questoris Knight that inspires that Armiger. So it's showing that strength by them, and it's within 12 inches. And so, for example, a Crusader, which is the one with 2 guns, that one can increase your ballistic skill by 1.
Yes, yeah.
The Paladin, it means you reroll 1s to hit and 1s to wound. Yeah. On that night. The errant, is it with the? I can never always get them the way around. But with the guy with the melter, so he has advance and charge, so we can put advance and charge with one of these. The one with the Gatling cannon, I can't remember what he does because no one uses him. He's I don't know. It's largely pointless. And the Gallant is +1 weapon skill.
Right. Okay.
So all of these, and while it's also providing that, it also makes that Armiger -1 damage.
Yes,
because it makes it more resistant to taking damage because it's being strengthened by this bond. Yeah, there's lore behind this thing, but effectively you're taking one of these, and if you become an exalted court, you can then do it twice.
So you can
in addition to doing it twice, that exalted court also then has an extra buff associated with it. Right. So, for example, there is a Mechanicus one called Master of the Vox, where you can give out your buff to 2 Armigers anywhere on the board rather than within 12.
Nice. Yeah.
There's the Herald, which is the one I use. Not a spoiler here, I tend to use one Questoris.
Yes.
They're a bit of a tax, but they're totally worth it for one. But so when he gives out his buff, he goes out the reroll 1s to hit, reroll 1s to wound because he's a paladin, but he also gives them a 4-up invuln, which is in combat and in shooting.
That's huge for knights. That's absolutely huge.
And then there's a relic that you can take, which then means that for one of those that you buffed, that is permanent until it's buffed by a different bondsman ability.
Right.
It doesn't lose it. So you can send it out into the wilderness. It can go and stand on an objective.
If you're not planning on putting a different one on it anyway, then it's fine, right? It's good to go.
You send it out and give it the chance to survive. So I was like, okay, this is where the flavour, there's lots of flavour around this. Another area where there was immediately flavour was around the preceptor, who basically works like a chaplain. So he has a bunch of nightly teachings that he can put onto Armigers.
Right.
Which initially looked very exciting. You could have one accept 2 bondsman abilities. You could you could have one action and shoot. There was a whole bunch of different things that you could give that looked really exciting to start with. And sort of I think the first thought for a lot of people was, oh yeah, you know what, you go with a paladin, an errant, and a preceptor, and 4 Armigers, and that's probably going to look quite good. Then you start to look at the houses, and all the houses have really quite different flavors that are really strong. So that would be the equivalent of your chapter from a Space Marine perspective. Yeah. So you look at Hawkshroud, for example. With the Hawkshroud, you count as double the number of wounds, and you also get +1 to honor. We'll come back to honor in a minute because that's the
I was going to say that's not a system I understand at all
of the jigsaw. But so you've got that kind of ability. And again, this is something that started really around the sort of Grey Knight sort of time, where you got a stratagem and a warlord trait and a relic associated with the house, and the stratagem for a Hawkshroud Knight is that for 2 CP you get to make a D6 + 6-inch heroic intervention.
That's super good.
And you fight first.
Super good. And you fight first.
Yeah, so it's quite spicy because then all of a sudden
very nice.
All this extra movement, all these things going on. There's some quite nice things in there. The relic is meta dependent, kind of fun, and that you basically do a 5-up, feel no pain against mortals aura. And there's Griffiths are all about combat, and you can actually get a warlord trait to advance and charge, so you can send out a gallant turn 1 to advance and charge, and all these things that, initially you're like, oh, that's really cool, but as you once you've looked at all the stuff that's cool, you then start to go, well, actually, what's going to work?
How does it function?
How's it going to function? And there's a thing called honor as well, and honor I think was something that people sort of almost saw as a bit of a throwaway bonus thing that you got. It's your kind of single faction bonus, if you like, from a sort of Marine perspective, and you pick two of 4 different sort of traits. So there's 4 different traits. You start the game with 1 honor point, And then there is for each of these traits, and you pick 2 of them, there is a pledge and a troth. And if you do the pledge, you gain an honor point.
Mm-hmm.
If you do the troth, you lose an honor point. So, for example, one of them, you might get an honor point for killing something in combat, but you might lose an honor point for falling back.
Yeah.
So they're quite thematic. And one instantly, you're like, right, I'm taking that one because on your turn, you gain 2 command points instead of 1.
Mm-hmm.
So immediately, knights are generating a lot of command points.
That's very nice.
And I think the second one on that one means that you can do 3 bondsman abilities or something. It's great on a Questoris. And you basically, when you hit 5 on your honor, then you get the virtuous thing, which is like a secondary ability that kicks in once you reach a certain level of
a bit like the chaos one. There's that second level you can unlock, right?
Yeah, that second level that you can unlock. So, for example, the defend the realm, which is the one everyone takes. The honoured ability is that you gain an extra command point in your turn, so you get 2 in your turn and 1 in your opponent's turn.
That's very nice.
Virtuous. That's right. Yeah, the model has gains the objective secured ability, which is great on a Questoris knight. And if the model already has that ability, which Armigers do, it counts as an additional 3 models. So all of a sudden, the Questoris knight counts as 10 models and and OBSEC, and an Armiger counts as 8. And interestingly, because they're a single unit that counts as multiple models, technically they can hold multiple objectives as well.
Yes.
Because they count as more than one model. Because only one model can hold an objective. But units can hold multiple objectives. So it also means that
several.
There's various missions that have 4 across the no man's land or whatever.
Yes,
you can stand across 2 of them with a Questoris knight,
and it will count. That's interesting. That's smart.
Which is kind of a fun little jank thing, but
absolutely,
it doesn't often become such a thing because again, often you want to heroically intervene with him, so you generally want to plonk him in the middle of things. But and there's one called Refuse No Challenge, which is all about melee. Mm-hmm. So in the first round of combat, if you're charged or heroic intervene or you charge, add 1 to that attack's hit roll. So all of a sudden, all your knights hitting on 2s in combat.
Super nice,
which is great. And then the virtuous ability is you can re-roll advance and charge rolls.
Yeah,
so it's a nice bonus. It's a nice bonus. It doesn't break. Most of these virtuous things don't break. They're the 2 that I normally take.
Yeah.
There's a third one where if you are selected to shoot or fight, you can reroll 1 hit roll and reroll 1 wound roll. Mm-hmm. And then the virtuous ability is basically means that once per turn you can turn the dice roll to a 6.
Yes.
So it's hugely powerful, that one. But the problem is, to get honor, you have to destroy a warlord, a character, a monster, or a vehicle. Plenty of games where that's not happening.
No.
And if you don't kill 2 units, and let's be honest, stuff hides, you lose an honor point. So for me, it pulls away honor, and that becomes a problem because one of the secondaries is be honorable.
You
just get points for being honourable. So,
really? That's interesting. Okay.
So again, they've stitched it all through. Yes. I mean, I had a game the other day where I scored 98 and I could have scored 100, but to score the 100, I would have actually had to fall back. I had so much fun that I could have fall back, but I steadfastly refused because it was dishonourable. So you want to. But the 4th honourability is one called Protect Those in Need, and that gives you a 6-inch heroic intervention if you are a character, or a 3-inch heroic intervention if you wouldn't normally get one. And then the virtuous ability is Inspiring Heroes. That means that you then can do an additional bondsman. And there is and we'll talk in a second about the way that I've gone with the list and the way I think most people are now going with the list. I went very early with it and went, okay, this is the way to do it. And that is to not play any of the noble houses. They're all great. The Raven's got fantastic things with counting weapons as assault and some great strats and things. But the free blade lance is the way to play if you're going to play competitive, I think. Okay. There is an argument for Tyrannus. Tyrannus, you get a 6-up, feel no pain. You're a Mechanicus house, so you get access to a strat that lets you do mortal wounds. And there's a build with Tyrannus where you can use a Crusader, and there is the potential to do 25 mortal wounds from a Crusader in a turn.
That's not bad.
I've tried it, and most turns I do 2. Yeah. So for me, it's too small. I don't like to plan. I'm already at my maximum tolerance for swing with all the 4-ups.
Yeah,
that exist in this.
You're already riding the TA 4-up train enough as it is.
You're totally used to that. Like as a knight player, as a grey knight player, there's a lot of armies like that where you live and die on on 4-ups.
A whole bunch of them in the game. Absolutely.
Yeah, you just have to give yourself the opportunity to roll 4-ups, and I think that's the important thing. But for me, I went to look at this free blade lance. The cool thing with the free blade lance is that each unit, and that unit might be 3 Armigers. Once they're deployed, they become individual models, but they originally count as a unit. So each unit that you take has its own set of characteristics. Its own.
They're getting a little. You can tailor quite a lot.
There's a custom army thing, so you can have all of you. You know, you could pick something like strike and shield.
Yeah,
strike and shield means that you can only be hit on a 4 in combat, and -1 AP counts as 0 AP.
That's lush. Yep.
And you can actually put that on the whole army, and you know what? It would be good. It would genuinely be good. Now, I look at that and I go, okay, that's really powerful. Then there's another one called Noble Competence, and you'll be familiar with what this one does because you've run Succubus before. Every time you go to damage, it goes back in again.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
That only
the old
works
competitive edge.
Because you've got a big hit and a sweep hit. It doesn't work on the sweeps.
Oh, so it's on the big boy attacks.
It only works on the big boy attacks. Unless you run a Magera where you can use, well, this isn't using the right keywords, so actually I can do, technically, you can do like 12 or 15 sweep attacks, and then each failed attack can then generate a big attack because of the way they've worded it. Anyone who does that, I think, deserves a yellow card and kicking out the tournament.
It's been noted.
The rule as written, you can technically do it. And funnily enough, they sort of protected against it a bit in the first set of rules, but they got the wording backwards. So it meant you actually had to do that with the original. And then there was an FP team that just completely disregarded Magera. And so they can do what they like now, technically. But no, I don't think anyone is even trying to do it because Magera don't have this bondsman ability.
Yeah.
They have no bondsman ability, so they can't buff Armigers.
Oh, so they're not making the Armigers go further.
They're not making the cut because simply a 24 or 26, depending on whether you're running an Imperial household or a Mechanicum household. Mechanicum Knights gain an extra couple of wounds. A 28 wound model with a 5-up invuln in shooting and a 3-up armor has no place in the game.
No.
To my mind, it's not survivable enough, and it also doesn't shoot enough. Its guns are too random. The battle cannon is 2d6 shots. Strength egg -2, flat 3 damage. -2 into this world now is, potentially just flat nothing. If you against the marine in cover, there's no ways to buff them. So there's no, very well. You could take one of those honor. You use one of the honor ones to get reroll a hit. Or a wound, but there's very little you can do to make them more effective. So, to me, immediately, I think Armigers were going to be the way to play. They're obsec; they count as 5. They move 12. Big Knights move 10. Again, that was a reduction in movement from previous versions. And there's only 2 variants. There are Forge World variants, and there's conversations to be had around the Forge World variant that maybe we'll get to a little bit later on, particularly as we move towards whatever the demon method is going to look like there. I think we're just going to see more models on the table again. Everything's going to be like sort of MSUE combat deathy, but the moment we start to see more models on the table, Knights are going to have to rethink their builds a little bit.
Retool a bit,
But the tools are there to do it. So But anyway, so Armigers. Armigers look great. You can bond them to be -1 damage. They have a strat for 1 CP to transhuman them.
Super good.
Which is super good.
And then you get that 4 layer, which is just so hard to get through.
We've already said, haven't we? There's this one called Strike and Shield. Cool. Yeah. Okay, so that means I can only be hit on a 4 in combat. I always forget the ignore -1 because everything seems to hit me with -2 or -3. But, there isn't that much -1 combat, although, chain swords before turn 3, I suppose. And again, you're not too worried about them. But although weight of dice do a lot of work, but again, there is another strat where you can add 1 to your armor save in combat. So all of a sudden, that you're ignoring the -1 and your R2 up.
And your +1 save.
Which helps you survive weight of dice.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of tools in this codex. I know we're going a bit haphazardly through it, but so this is where the free blade lance kicks in. So the idea with free blades is these are knights that have perhaps become detached from their lance, because again, you'd have these nobles would send off a bunch of knights on a crusade, to go and help somebody to defend the emperor, to defend the Omnissiah or whatever it was that they were, depending on their allegiance. And again, their allegiance comes historically actually from often if a Mechanicus went sort of post when the emperor sent everyone out to go and sort of kill some Xenos, and they were searching planets and they found these colonies, because these are really early colonies that were and they built knights to protect themselves and when they made planetfall, and then they isolated themselves. So at the time when everyone else was suffering with all sorts of psychic stuff, and there was a lot of issues, the knight worlds were all sort of locked down, and they were largely unaffected by it. They had a very low tolerance for witches, so anyone who showed any sort of psychic ability would be set fire to.
Sorted out. Yeah,
absolutely. It was lots of traditional story in these things. So and some of them they were struggling to maintain, and Mechanicus houses tended to come and trade knowledge for fixing things, etc. And they became Mechanicus houses, and some swore allegiance to the emperor and became imperial houses. And so you either pick an imperial household or a Mechanicus household. If you pick a Mechanicus household, you gain some wounds, which is great. You gain a couple of wounds. You regrow a wound every turn.
Oh, that's nice.
Which is nice if you become an imperial. And again, everyone thought the strength was in Mechanicus. Imperial, you could ignore modifiers to advance and charges. And I can't remember what the other one is actually. It's kind of out of my head. But I'll check in a second. But they had, again, they had some characteristics that were fine. But the Free Blade Lance is really cool, because with the Free Blade Lance, you pick a unit, you decide whether that unit is allegiant to Imperium or to Mechanicus, but they don't get either of those traits. They just get one bit of each. So they get the ignore modifiers to charges, which is kind of the worst bit. Of it. Oh, it's extra movement. You get extra movement. Plus to your advance and charge with an Imperium house. So you get +1 to your advance and charge, which is potentially quite good. But you don't get that as a Free Blade Lance. And these are these knights that have got separated and wandered and found packs of other knights that have got separated, and they form a new army. This Free Blade Lance, bunch
sort
of
roving mercenaries almost.
Roving mercenaries. They all have different skills because they've all come from different places. But they've decided to form an army. So that's the sort of law, if you like. So there is a justifiable law for it.
Totally.
And they have this thing where they ignore modifiers to charges, which again can be quite useful. And they also gain a wound every turn. Which again I find quite
nice.
It's often
very nice.
With a bracket or something. So that's what you get for the Free Blade Lance. You get all of these, but each squad gets its own thing. So the army I've been running, I run 3 Armigers with strike and shield. So 3 Armigers that are can only be hit on a 4 in combat and ignore -1 in combat. And quite often turn 1, you'll put 1 on one objective, 1 on another objective, and castle up behind on the other one.
So they're the bait. They're leading things out.
So the 2 that you send out are on a 4 pin run as well. They're -1 damage. They're trans-hitman, and one of them will be transhuman.
So that's going to force a quite serious commitment from the enemy to sort
really commit to kill them. I mean, like I've seen Disco Lords bounce.
Wow, nice. Yeah.
I mean, I think I did 3 turns in combat with Plague Marines.
Wow.
And eventually won with a opponent who'd made a mistake on them fighting on death as well. So they really do. They hang about. You can really make one of them tough. Which is great. So you have 3 of them doing that. Then you have another 3 who sort of follow up.
The next wave.
Join. And they're the ones that if they fail to make if they fail to make damage, they go around again with a strength 10 -4 flat 3 damage weapon that hits on 2s re-rolling 1s.
So they're setting upon whatever's been committed and then just slapping the damage on. And really nice.
If you charge something that's already in combat with another Armiger, I gain some honor. But also I have a stratagem whereby I can get an extra attack if more than one Armiger is in combat with a unit. You get a +1 attack against that unit. So again, all of a sudden you can then go to 5, and then you've got 5 attacks. You can spend a CP to explode on 6s, and every failed to do damage starts again and re-explodes. So before you know it, you are really churning through things.
Yes, putting a lot of pain.
So that gives you an idea of some of the flexibility of the free blade lance in terms of something like Armigers. There's other ones as well where you get +1 to your save for damage 1 weapons. So again, you can become more resilient to things like storm bolters. Because again, if you've got reroll into hit and wound Dark Angel storm bolters, for example. They actually they do work in
you don't want that weight of fire coming through the 3-up, not at all.
So you can really that's a way you can do them if you want to make them defendable in that direction. There's all sorts of different characteristics. There's one where you can double the number of models in the target unit from the perspective of blast weapons, which is quite good if you take a Moirax with 2 grav cannons, which are strength 6 -3 flat 3 damage.
Nice.
D6 blast. So all of a sudden, against squads of 6 or more, you're 12 shots.
Full shots.
So there's all sorts of things that you can do with it. That is a Mechanicus trait.
Right, okay.
The strike and shield, the noble competence, which is the old classic Drakari trait, they are both Mechanicum. So they're both Imperial.
Right, yeah.
So again, you have to state whether they're going to be Imperial or Mechanicum. There are some stratagems that are unique to Imperium and some stratagems that are unique to Mechanicum.
Yeah.
The act at full profile, the ignore mortal wounds on a 5-up are unique to Mechanicum Knights.
Okay, yeah.
So some people will choose to build a Mechanicum unit into their Freeblade Lance so that they can have a forward
to access that stuff. Yeah, having something that can take sort of psychic damage. And
they've also got a mortal wound strat where sort of if you do a 6 to wound, it becomes the damage profile of the gun mortal wounds.
Oh wow!
So that's the one that's really the one that's really 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 good on the on the crusade on the Crusader with he's already got like 12 shots with stubbers.
Yeah,
so you're doing 2 mortals off the stubbers. So it's that kind of a that kind of a sort of. But I don't rate that. But you can do it.
Yeah.
There are other ones as well that are absolutely fantastic. So we haven't spoken about Helverins yet. Helverins have had a bit of an improvement.
Yeah, Helverins are pretty crucial, right? To the way that
the improvement is they've gone from -1 AP to -2.
Yeah.
So they're 4d3 shots at strength 7, -2, flat 3 damage.
So that rate of flat 3 damage shooting.
The flat 3 damage is good. Now it still struggles into Marines to an extent, but you know what? If you roll badly with them, you're going to get 6 shots. If you roll well with them, you're going to score 9 or 10 shots.
Yeah.
So they don't. Even if they fail a couple, that's 2 dead Terminators, and 2 dead Terminators is enough to make a 5-man Terminator squad ineffective into you.
Yeah.
With -1 damage.
Yeah.
So you don't have to kill a whole squad to make it functionally useless.
No.
So it's enough shots, and so I'm running 4 of these fellas.
Yeah, but I was going to say because their range is also nuts, isn't it? Helverins, they're always at the party no matter what's going on. Yeah,
they're always in the party, but also I run them as 2/2s because I find I want to be able to run potentially different flanks. But also there's a 1 CP strat, and again, don't forget you're getting 3 CP a turn. There's a 1 CP strat where if 2 of them are within 6 inches of a board edge, they can come off and come back on again next turn.
Oh, that's fun. So you can just get the angle you need.
If you've got somebody who's castled up, to avoid them, you say, well, you've got to commit now, otherwise they're dead. Because the other thing about Armigers, Helverins, is that there's a couple of little things you can do with them to make them slightly stronger. So I like to run a pair of mine where if they're within 18 inches, they're +1 strength. So they go to strength 8. That's a nice break point.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
3s against tanks, 4s against big knights or whatever. That's a really nice break point. And again, if you're going to be doing this, you're probably going to drop them in somewhere within 18, because the other reason to do it is because you also want to split your opponent's force. Because the moment you split your opponent's force, because they're going to have to split to deal with it, and actually dealing with 2 Armigers is not easy.
It is really
these
not.
ones will not have any bondsman buffs because they're not on the command phase.
Yeah.
So they're not going to be -1 damage, but they're still quite hard work to get through. So there's play there, in terms of splitting the force. So
absolutely.
The other one, I run something called Hunters of Beasts.
Yep.
Which gives you +1 to wound.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Just always nice.
You run a relic called the Bastard's Helm.
Now, I've heard of the Bastard's Helm.
It's
very nice.
Relic. It's a bondsman ability. So this guy that's holding this relic can also place a bondsman onto his friend.
He can give it out. He can inspire
Immediately
someone.
he's giving that ability out, but he's also then making that knight -1 damage.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Great.
So that's just a little side effect whenever it happens. That's super good. Yeah.
You also get this effect. Now, there are games where it does nothing. But it basically means that if you shoot into vehicles or monsters, you hit on 2s instead of 3s.
Mm.
And if you shoot into Titanic units, it goes to damage 4. So if you're playing into a Night Mirror against Questoris Knights, all of a sudden you're hitting on 2s and you're flat 4 damage.
Yeah, that's very nice.
For 1 CP, and again, I keep saying these 1 CP strats, there's loads of them.
Yeah.
This is a good one. You pick 3 Armigers, can be Helverins, can be Warglaives, and 6s to hit auto wound. And you have got 16 D3 shots.
Yeah, like damage 3 auto wounding shots.
Damage 3 or damage 4 if you're into...
Or damage 4, yeah. So you can just really ramp up the damage.
You can. Well, I played at Leeds recently. I played... I only played the first day, but I went into a Chaos Knights list, and we were quite excited. Chaos Knights against Imperial Knights, this is going to be great. He kind of moved his army out, and then I shot. And I picked up 3 Questoris Knights in a turn.
Wow. Ouch. Yeah.
Just straight dead.
Just phenomenal damage.
Pains and all sorts. It's so many shots because you've actually got 6 Armigers, all who have 30-inch multi-melters.
Yeah.
They've also all got a melter gun on top of them, and they move 12 inches, so you can probably get them in range. So before you know it,
it's a lot of melter.
You've got 18 melter shots.
Mm.
That's more than Sisters put out by a chunk.
Oh, by a huge
melter. Plus, you've got those 4 Helverins.
Yeah.
Plus, you've got a Questoris dude who might just go off because he's also got a D6 damage missile launcher. So, you've got that is a ton of shooting.
It's a lot.
A ton of shooting.
Yeah.
And so, that shows you the kind of benefits of the Freeblade Lance. All of these benefits,
because you can customize it to set up this puzzle, right? Essentially,
you can choose to solve this puzzle, and all of these are actually Imperial ones.
Yeah.
So, there's also one that I like to take on my Questoris Knight, on my Paladin I've been running, to give the reroll 1s to hit and wound, because I'm not playing these guys super aggressively.
No.
I'm playing a trading game, actually.
Yeah.
It's honestly it's the first time I've played with an army that genuinely trades.
Yeah.
It's really funny. But you send these 2 Armigers out, and then they're going to have to hit you with something that probably costs 4 to 5 times the points of the Armiger to guarantee it
in order to shift the Armiger.
You've got, they kill 1, maybe 2 Armigers. Mm-hmm. There's another 8 and a big fella staring at you.
And can they keep doing that? Yeah.
Well, you can't. You've got 1 turn and then you're done. You have to play different. You can't play that game. And because they're obsec, they're just scoring points like crazy.
Yeah.
So, but the Questoris Knight that I've got, he takes a trait that again I think is really cool. That basically gives him an extra bondsman ability. Sorry, not an extra bondsman, an extra honor ability.
Yeah.
So with him, he takes the heroic intervention 1, and I also give him a warlord trait that gives me +1 honor, which gets me on the virtuous train more quickly. It also means he fights first.
Yeah, so fighting first on a big angry knight is amazing.
And if he gets virtuous, then he's doing 3 bondsman abilities. And I find by turn 3, I've run out of knights to bond. Like they're all bonded,
They're all off happily.
And then if he kills a character or a vehicle, I can't remember what the exact term is, as a free blade for 1 CP, he then gets to pick an extra trait on top of that. So he picks the 1 to turn a dice into a 6.
Yeah. So.
And before you know it, you've then got yourself a pretty defendable knight. There is an argument for also giving him the 4 bin run in combat, but I use him so defensively. I don't mind if he doesn't shoot once in a game. Yeah. I don't mind if he doesn't make combat once in a game, because what he's done is he's made a bunch of Armigers unkillable. Well, very hard.
It's the Armigers that are really teasing out the enemy and dealing with it, right? And he's just supplying the ammo almost. Yeah.
What it can't deal with is mortal wounds.
Yeah.
So there was an argument for dropping out either one of the Helverins or one of the more punchy Armigers to run an Armiger that can take a mechanical trait, and then in a matchup where it's going to matter, to give him the ability to take a 5-up feel no pain.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but it's really cool, isn't it, that we're talking about this kind of tech piece jigsaw puzzle fixing.
Oh, totally.
In a list of giant robots.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what it sounds like. That's what these layers, and it was the same looking at the Chaos Knights. But these little customizable bits of just for a Knights player like yourself have added up so much customizability, and that's super cool.
I think the downside is, as we spoke earlier, the problem that the Questoris Knights are, they're almost a tax. You need to take one to make your detachment work properly to get the full refunds, and in order to do the bonding, you don't need to. You don't. I've run plenty of games now with one, and I have never felt like I needed more bondsman abilities because I can hide some Armigers on LGT terrain. You can hide 5-7 Armigers,
and you can take your time. Yeah.
You can take your time, so you don't need the second one, and they just don't do enough. So at the moment, I think you look at the Knights win rate, and it's entirely skewed by the number of Knight players who want to take their 3 big Knights.
Yes,
and that list is terrible.
Yeah, so there's an extent to which the classic style is really not functioning.
It's not,
and it's these Armiger heavy builds that are much better.
And there's a choice to make whether you want 2 or 1 Questoris.
Yeah.
If you run the 2, there's 2 different ways you can play it. One is with the Mortal Wound Crusader plus a Paladin or an Errant, and at that point there's an argument to be made for Tyrannus or for the Freeblade Lance.
Yeah.
You can also run an Errant and a Paladin, which then gives you 1 advancing and charging. And honestly, it's ludicrous when these things are advancing and charging and they're going as far as they're going.
Oh, it's nuts.
You are touching your opponent's home objective turn 1.
Yeah,
with a knight that they have to deal with.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Trans-hitman, transhuman, 4-up invuln, -1 damage on your home objective.
Yeah, and it just I'm certainly speaking from the perspective of people who, obviously I play various sort of more melee centric armies. Having these big things that require so much commitment to deal with, it just means everything has to go into the place you can't go against Knights, right? As soon as that stuff's in the open, Knights do what they do, and you start getting picked up, and so it gives you so much control over matchups where you're drawing them out onto stuff that you can afford to lose, right? You've got like 3 turns worth of doing that before you're worried.
You've got 7 Armigers with that list. You've got 2 big fellas and 7 Armigers. Now, I prefer the 10 and 1 just because I don't think you need to be that aggressive, and I think being that aggressive, you kind of create staging posts. You can, I don't know, I want to be able to have the threat of winning the game without leaving my deployment zone.
Yes, and with the secondary set that you've got, you can do that, right? Yeah. Explain it, because that's my understanding, right? You can basically have a sort of half for the board and be in a good spot secondary.
There's a 4th one that no one talks about, which is a kind of pick a character, and if you kill it in combat, you score loads of points type sort of thing.
One of those. Yeah.
One of those challenging ones. That's one side. There's then 3 more. There's one, and I'll get the correct names for them, because I think
nice.
We're talking about these. We should get the right names. And again, they're not accurate in the book, but I can explain them accurately, rather than this. But there's the 3 that you're likely to take are based around this idea of honor. So there's an honor based one. I can't find them now. Typical. I had them open on the page. I think they're much further in, actually. It's my fault. But so there's a no mercy, no respite called honor of the house.
Yeah.
And the way honor of the house works is you get 2 points for being honored every turn.
Okay.
And unless you're tabled, you're honored. And there's an argument that even when you're tabled, you're still honored. But because there's nothing to say that you go to 0 when you're dead, I don't think.
Right, okay. And that's why you were saying it's important to start honored and then not lose it, right? That's
yeah. So, but you start with 1 anyway. But I start with 2 because of the trait I take on my big fella. There is also a stratagem for a Freeblade Lance to take a second relic, because the relic I take is the one that allows me to permanently bond 1 knight per turn.
Yeah,
so you can also take the 4-up invuln in combat if you're going to be more aggressive. I'm just not very aggressive with mine, so I don't think it pays off. If you're running 2, you have to be aggressive with them. So you want 1 running the 4-up.
Yeah.
There is the first game I played with Hawkshroud, and I took a second kind of trait in terms of its herald, it's sort of its exalted court ability, that basically character protected one of the knights.
Oh, wow.
One in the open,
Okay.
one behind an L, and you couldn't shoot the one in the open. They're so bad that they're not worth protecting. They're just a ton of points. Anyway, so you get 2 points. And then where it gets interesting, at the end of the game, you gain 2 additional points if you are honoured, and then an additional 3 points if you're virtuous.
Right.
5 turns gets you 10 points, and if you finish honoured, you get 12, and if you finish virtuous, you get 15.
Yeah, super
just
nice.
Being alive.
Just for doing your thing.
You
staying alive, doing your thing.
Honestly, you have to be a terrible player to finish. To not finish virtuous, as long as you're aware of it, it's not it in no way, shape, or form changes the way that you play to score 15. Now, if you don't engage your enemy at all, but you hold more objectives than they do at the end of your turn each turn, then you get a point each turn, which gets you to virtuous.
Yeah, so that's where that get in the middle, keep 15, holding it, keep feeding, and you just keep the score coming.
The other reason that we do that is that the second Battlefield Supremacy one is called Yield No Ground.
Okay.
Where you score a point every turn if you hold half or more of the objectives. You score a point every turn if there are no enemy units, excluding aircraft, within your deployment zone. And you score a point every turn if you don't end closer to your battlefield edge than they started the turn, and you don't fall back.
Very nice.
So
again, things you kind of want to be doing.
Things you kind of want to be doing.
Yeah.
That's 15 points. And you know what? You might just need to fall back.
Yeah.
And that falling back might win you the game, and you score 14 on that secondary instead.
Yeah.
That's not a terrible trade. I've not done it. You might be in a situation where you want to do that. And the third one is called Renew the Oaths, which is a shadow operations one. And that one, if you're within 6 inches of the centre, you can do an action.
Okay.
If an Armiger does that action, 3 points.
Okay.
If a character Armiger does the action, 4 points. If the big fella does it, 5 points.
Okay.
So again, you can send all your Armigers out to do all the damage, and turn 3, wander out with the big fella and score 15 by being near the middle.
Yeah.
There's
he
nothing
just
left
needs
to really
finish the job. Yeah. Super good.
So
Super good.
You are in a very... There's no real encouragement to be aggressive in the secondaries, which again is why I quite like, why I think it lends you into that trading style game, because it puts you in a position to do really well on the secondaries. The only missions where there's no objective in the center, and because you're doing an action and there's no way to shoot an action unless you take a preceptor, and there's no way in the world you're taking a preceptor for the chance to shoot an action on the 3-up. Again, you can get it to a 2-up, but again, you're just constantly investing for this benefit. So you're not going to be able to shoot an action, but you know that you have knights that can score 5 points.
You do. So that's always there.
If you go first, my standard play is to, and again, I'm thinking of LGT terrain, you've normally got a big L on one side or in the corner. Put the big fella around there, you hide your Helverins. If your opponent's all about combat, you just stand them in the open. You really don't care. Because it's going to take them 2 turns to get to you, and then and you want them in with you as much as they want to be in with you. It's like you don't have to sort of defend. And if an army's got loads of guns, then you hide the big fella, you hide the Armigers the best you can. You end up exposing. I mean, there's going to be 3 visible, and you just make sure that those 3, all 3 of them are within 12 of 2 objectives, so that you can hop on and do the thing, or even you don't even mind advancing onto one of them. And again, if your opponents come out to take the objective, you're going to be a charge away. Yeah. So you know that you can get in a mess, and they're 5 a model obsec. And it's really hard. The
mission playing Armigers now is so good.
Lot of armies to put obsec turn 1 onto those midfield objectives. Yeah. People can put non-obsec models out there very, very easily. But actually committing obsec out there at that point is quite detrimental to a lot of these armies because, again, a lot of these combat armies, they look at it, and obviously I give up, bring it down. I give up 24 points to bring it down.
Yeah, of course, which is partly why you've got good secondaries, right, as a counterweight to that.
I guess so, but I've never lost more than 5 Armigers. So I've never given up more than 10.
Yeah.
And I'm only 15 games in now, but,
yeah.
And I've only dropped 10 points in those 15 games as well. So there's a lot of things I haven't played yet that I think are going to be a massive challenge. I was having a good chat with David Gaylard at Leeds, and I think his Tyranid list and the quality of him as a player would make it very, very challenging. Like playing someone like Nassim with his Iron Hands.
Yes, okay.
Second, it's not a game.
Yes,
it's not a game untabled. There's nothing I can do to hit him back with the volume with which he hits me.
Yes.
I just don't think there's a world where I roll enough 4-ups.
Yes.
But also he can get angles because he's dropped pods. He can generate angles to take out what he needs to take out. His shooting is incredibly strong, but it's also incredibly reliable. It's not swingy. So
exactly.
that's not a game. The Iron Hands game, which interestingly is why I stopped playing Knights and went on to Grey Knights to start with. I had a tournament where I played an Iron Hands list that I went in with the 8 Custodies, the Bike Captain, 3 Majera, and end of turn 1, I had 2 Custodies left.
Yeah,
and he went. So it's like,
horrific.
And you just think, what's the point? I mean, the Chaos Knights list that I beat at Leeds took no skill. I just rolled dice. There was too many dice. And then having lost that game to Iron Hands, I then went into Manny's buggy list. So it was, that was the point where I was like, right, Knights need to stop now. This is too many bad matchups. There are still some bad matchups.
Yeah, what do you think those are? What gives you problems?
So I think Tyranids has real challenge if it's the right Tyranid play. Tyranid Warriors are really hard to kill.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Tyranid Warriors play the game I play.
Yes, drawing stuff out.
Yeah, and they've also got the Harpies that'll move block. There's a lot of tools. I mean, a lot of those armies are not running the big damage output Harpies, but they still do tons of work, and you've still got to deal.
Oh, they do. Yeah.
And then you've got mortal wound damage. The mortal wound damage is a real problem against the Nids. Yeah. Because there's loads of it, and then the again, you've got Trans-Hitman, Transhuman, -1 damage. Even Armigers really struggle. Helverins really struggle into them. It's why I've been pondering because they're running these in big blobs. It's why I'm pondering the auto 12-shot Moirax with the Grav.
Yes,
they're actually quite tasty into warriors.
That makes sense. Yeah,
a little bit better, and again, actually, they're going to be great into demons with feel no pains and invuns and stuff, because you know that if you get one through, it's going to do work because they're going to have to pass. There's lots of 2-wound demon stuff. We've already seen from GW sort of pre-releases. The stuff that they put on their community page. I think there's mileage in it. Maybe we'll see, but I think that's a real challenge. I think I do think that's Hail of Doom.
Oh yeah,
it's actually a challenge because it's sheer weight of dice. Now again, you can tech into it because you can run 3 Armigers that are +1 to their armor save against 1 damage. At which point, Hail of Doom does nothing. Like it instantly turns it off, and you control where it comes down. But that's an enormous tech move for what's become a minority.
Yes,
choice.
And so you're not necessarily able to cover your angles for all of these different potential counterweights.
And again, I think a really shuriken heavy Hail of Doom list. They're not as numerous as they were, but I think if you have a bad turn, it can probably pick up 5 Armigers.
Yeah,
if it really rolls hot, which is not. And again, it's not that statistically unlikely, is it, for them to roll hot? Like it doesn't.
They do that. Elf players sometimes.
If you just see each dice as an individual dice, and don't think about the consequence of the previous one in terms of odds. There's lots of opportunities for them to get damage through to you. And to make you roll armor saves. So and they're on 3-ups. They're not on 2-ups. They're on 3-ups. So it's a bit of a problem. I think that I have yet to play into something really hoardy.
Yes,
that would be really interesting. I think between the Helverins, the battle cannon, and all the stubbers, you can, and actually the fact that you can go in with 8 attacks per Armiger.
Yeah.
With
the Helverin guns, are they blast?
No.
Okay.
No, they're just heavy D3, which means you can shoot them into combat. And again, because
nice.
the vehicles, Knights shooting into combat is actually pretty handy. I found that to be quite useful. So there's a lot of benefit. I think that they have. You just have to work hard, but I think that they have. And it's important, isn't it, that you don't look at sort of go, oh, it doesn't stomp it, therefore it's not good. Like, it has a game.
Yeah.
It has a game and stuff. But the Iron Hands, I don't think it has a game. The NIDS, I think, is one you lose 4 games out of 5, maybe 9 games out of 10. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's that kind of a thing.
Do you think that's why, although, because as you say, the win rate is spot on, and we've not seen tons of top finishes for Knights, have we, since the book drop? There's been some, but it's not been that kind of complete. Yeah, that's it. There's not been. Do you think that's just that build just hasn't been that prevalent?
Yeah, I just think you've got to have 10 Armigers to play 10 Armigers, and actually, it's not easy to use.
No.
I've sort of said
Got to be very patient.
The kind of plan is kind of simple, but actually because the trick to playing 10 Armigers is that you are trying to make your opponent do stuff.
Yes.
So you're playing your opponent's army as well, and you're providing them with choices. So the CSM player that I played at Leeds, I split onto 2 flanks with the aim of giving him enough Armigers to tempt the Disco Lord round, knowing that he would then be so far away in turn 3, the big fella would have free reign to score 15.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing where you're thinking about, right, this is where I want this thing at turn 4. This thing can hurt the thing I want there in turn 4. So how much do I have to sacrifice to get it to go over there and not be a problem anymore? Because Disco Lords have to walk around stuff in the same way that Knights do.
And that's what you mean with the trading, right? It's really all about when you give up those Armigers and how you steer them around the board. How you steer them around and how you roadblock and how you leave the next one close enough to make sure that the thing carries on going that way. And it's that kind of play. And a lot of Knight players, I think they play them like a lot of Blood Angel players play Blood Angels, where they just go hell for leather. That's why the Chaos Knights immediately look great, because the Chaos Knights afford that kind of play. Yeah, I've always said with Blood Angels players, you know after turn 1 whether you're in trouble or not, and if they've not done much, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. I mean, they can be in Assault Doctrine as many times as they like, but it's about knowing that you and again, I played a Blood Angels player round 1. Lovely guy, but his list was not optimized. But also just created an environment where he had to commit his hammers somewhere where he really didn't want to commit them. Yes. And the hammers are the only thing that give me a problem, because Sanguinary got a bounce. Yes. Off damage. Yeah. With Trans-Hitman, Transhuman. Yeah. And again, if you split 3 ways, he can only re-roll in one place. Like, he's only got Dante buff in one place. And again, it's a lot of 4-ups, because he's hitting 4s to hit, 4s to wound, and I've got 4s to save. By the time you get through all of those 4s, something's going to spike somewhere. And it's just a lot of opportunities for it to spike the wrong way, because there's more. The spike is more impactful on the save, because there's always 2 other places it can go wrong. Yeah. So so that's kind of how I see it, and I think there will definitely be some challenging matchups. I think things that have lots of dice. I think sisters are going to be hard work. Yes. Necrons is a very binary on build. Yes. So if you are double Catan and you've teched with the Void Dragon, it's a real problem, because I don't have good ways to do mortal wounds. No. So multi-phase damage is very difficult, so I just have to kill everything else. But where I really disrupt the Necron game is being a 5 model obsec model that they can't really kill. Yes, that makes their mission play. They'll do the whole. They'll want to do things with things like scarabs. Yeah, like I can deal with scarabs. So all of a sudden, you're out obsecking them. Yes. So if they don't have the build to deal with it, the right build is the double Catan. Yeah. But I think the right build is the double Catan, full stop. I really like double Catan. Yeah, I think it's a really, really good army. But you have to be very careful with your assets as a Necron player against it, because you score early,
but the Knights keep up on primary. The Knights are very good at primary denial. If you've got the advance and charge, it gets really interesting. Actually, if you've got the Mortal Wound Crusader, it gets very interesting because, for example, he kills on bad dice 20 warriors.
Oh, wow.
So there are bad matchups based on builds, but it's very build based, isn't it? And that's quite cool. It's quite cool, and
that's kind of how that's where we're at a bit, isn't it? We're in a nice place where there are lots of different things out there and some of them are counterparts, sort of foil each other, and some of them don't, and that's an interesting time to play, I think.
When I go to a tournament, I definitely know that my final result will be entirely down to not entirely down, but will be significantly influenced by the luck of the draw.
Yeah, by what you hit and where you hit it, and that's
where I hit it, and
when the game is mad diverse as 40k. That's kind of how it should be, right? It should be that about what you hit.
Manny playing sisters, probably going to be a problem because he's going to understand what I'm trying to do to him.
Yes,
as well.
Yeah,
and so it becomes very, very cat and mouse, and they have a lot of resources. I think it'd be it'd be a nice game to play not on a clock. So that you could really get into it, and those sorts of things. I'm looking forward to, at some point, playing some Drakari and seeing how that goes, because I think that can be very interesting. Like someone like Julio, for example, who is really a master of the Drakari, and I've had some fantastic games against Julio with my Grey Knights. We often found ourselves round 5 at 4-0 in big GTs and majors, and it's he's a very, very clever, considered player.
Yes,
yourself, again, someone who understands how the army works. I think it would be it's an interesting one. If we played it and every single game was a different game.
Yeah.
I think it's not one way you can predict, and that's nice. I think that's a nice thing.
Definitely.
But there are some matchups that are just brutal.
Yeah.
I played into the Chaos Knights, and it was basically
that sounds like that didn't work out.
Table turn 2 for them. Or the Blood Angels got absolutely destroyed. The CS, I think there is, the sort of Anthony Vanilla CSM builds has the tech in it to go into Knights.
Yeah.
But it can't whiff.
No.
I don't think it can whiff and stay in it. Yeah. Because again, you can roadblock Abaddon, and interestingly with Abaddon, when I charge Abaddon, I can spend a CP, I roll 4 dice, and if I roll 1-6, I do the 3 mortal wounds I need. Which I did in the Chaos. I rolled the 6.
Yeah, that's
I rolled the
nice.
6 to get the 3
nice to have.
So it's like, I've got the mortal wounds I need, which meant I could kill him. So a Warglaive killed him, and it was because he melted him and then mortaled him and then punched him. But I didn't mind losing that Warglaive and taking 6 wounds off Abaddon and then finishing with whatever else was left. That's a good trade. That's a good trade.
Oh,
I think that's the problem with CSM, because Possessed are amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not into a -1 damage Armiger with 4 up.
No.
Trans-Hitman, Transhuman.
No.
It's like 3-4 wounds.
Mm-hmm.
So it's down to the general, isn't it? They have to have, and I think I know we were going to talk about this, and I think it's probably a good time to move on to it. The whole sort of what Knights do in the meta, like what they're kind of
what's the role? What's the point of them, right?
What's the and I think we would probably all agree that there is I don't know whether we'd all agree, but there's an argument, and I think it's an easy argument to defend, that 40k would be a better game without Knights.
Right. Okay.
I think that there is a place for that argument. We have a mutual friend who I know is very very, very sort of just no, Knights are bad for the game. And don't even try and argue that they're not, and I totally see why, because they are a gatekeeper, and they're a gatekeeper but I actually think gatekeepers are quite important in some ways, because what they stop is hardcore meta skew.
Yeah.
The problem is when they become strong in a gatekeeper, because they then become the skew.
Yeah, completely.
And when the gatekeeper is also the skew, and there was a period in 8th, and like myself, George, and a few other players, some really, really top players, were running 3 or 4 big knights and Guilliman, or with some guard, or there was the classic, wasn't there, in 8th with the Blood Angel Smash Captain.
Yeah.
I don't consider that a knight army. That's just using it. That's just a walking gun platform that has way too many resources.
But that was 8th, wasn't it, where you could pick and choose so much more.
It's an aberration, that. So we'll put that to one side. But there was a period when a bunch of good players were winning events with pure knight, pure Questoris, and Guilliman builds, because they were really hard to kill. They did a heinous amount of damage. They were horrendous in combat. And again, having Crusaders that also got 12 attacks with their feet was a massive problem. Which could be buffed with Guilliman. So there was a huge problem there, where the skew also became powerful and also was a gatekeeper. Yes. Because what it does is it invalidates a lot of different armies. Yeah. I don't think at the moment they do that.
No, I would agree, and the meta would seem to agree with you, right? They are not stamping everything.
The big knights are poor.
Yeah,
to be honest. Now, I think there are those who would say, even taking one feels like a waste of 500 points. Yeah, I'm sorry. Something that makes Armigers that effective has to cost 500 points.
Yeah,
otherwise it's too much. But also, like, this whole thing, Armigers, the like a knight pilot in the lore is at one with his throne. So they plug them into these thrones, and they have this night of torment while they discover whether they have the mental fortitude to become one with the throne or whatever.
Yeah.
Armiger pilots, they just wear a headband thing, and it goes in to the brain to control it. They're like a lower level of honor, if you like, and it makes sense to me. From a lore perspective, it makes sense, but also from a gameplay perspective. And I know, I know that on one of the chats I started trying to defend it. It was clear it wasn't. There was no point in having the argument, but I actually don't think it is broken, and I'm not sure I like at the moment the way that they're using secondaries to balance the game. I think it is effective.
Yeah.
I think it's effective, but it. So I played Dark Angels the other day. I'm playing in this really cool league. I'll just admit this league's amazing. So you play a game a month over 5 months. Yeah, and it works like a 5-round tournament.
Super spaced out. Wow.
And you commit to a faction. Yeah. And the amazing thing is, in 5 months' time, what's good now will not.
It'll be completely different. Yeah.
Brilliant way of playing a tournament, because I have to keep playing knights. I'm in with knights, but I played Dark Angels, and this the guy I played against, lovely guy, great, beautiful army, but very much first company, all themed, like stunning army, all Terminators. Yeah. And I sort of gently tabled it over 4 turns. But it had no secondaries.
Yes.
It had no secondaries. What was on the table, a really good attritional game that should have seen them scoring. Yeah,
just doesn't have that layer.
It was 148, and to be honest, probably could have pushed it to be 130.
Yeah.
And and that was not, and you might look at that and go, God, the Knights are oppressive.
Yeah.
If the Dark Angels had secondaries as good as the Knights, that game probably would have been 85-80.
Yeah.
It could have been with the props.
So I think that's where it gets hard to tell quite what's going on, right?
The honor secondary should not be able to generate 15 points. It should cap at 12.
Okay.
I think to me it feels too much. I think that the I don't know how to make I need to think about it more about how you would deal with the action based one, because there are times when you can't take the action based one because there's no objective in the middle, and you can't commit a resource that isn't scoring 2 things with knights. You don't have enough stuff. I've got 5 drops. I've literally got 5 drops. I can make it 6 because you can have a free super heavy orcs because they share keywords and stuff. Which is then when you bring your Mechanicus dude in, who then takes the mortal wounds. So that
nice
6 drop. Also, from a deployment perspective, sometimes being able to deploy a 2 and a 1, you can hide a 2 and a 1, and you can't hide a 3. So there's advantages to it, but the secondary game to me just feels it feels like in the games you're going to win, the secondaries make you win harder.
Yes,
and I haven't yet had enough of those really tough games.
Yeah,
but I think quite often I'll think about swapping out the action-based one where there's no central objective for something my opponent gives out.
Yeah.
And because it's half or more and it's only 1 point, that secondary that's the sort of supremacy type thing still remains good, actually.
Oh, yeah.
So you can still keep playing. So that for me is the one that gets flexed in and out, depending on, is there a center objective? Am I prepared to have knights doing actions? Is my paladin going to need to get involved? All of these sorts of things, because you need to be thinking about what resource am I using to get that secondary in that turn. But also, so at the beginning of the game, I'll almost sketch out on a bit of paper how I see the distribution of points for that secondary. So I'm almost like a plus minus on target.
Yeah.
And I think your secondaries game is a bit strong when you can do a plus minus thing to target and not really think about what your opponent is. You just think, can my opponent blow me up at range?
Yes.
If yes, adjust target.
Yeah.
And it's that, And I think that Knights, actually the book is really well written. I think the book is actually quite balanced. I don't think the book is a problem for the meta.
It doesn't seem to be,
because I think it makes armies can kill. All right, maybe it is. Okay, so the -1 damage thing is a problem for the meta.
Do you think having as much of it out there in the field in one time is the issue?
I think -1 damage I think there are mechanics now that are bad for the meta rather than armies.
Yeah.
I think -1 damage is a troubling mechanic because it invalidates 2 damage armies, which tend to be combat marine armies, if we're honest.
Yeah.
There's a lot, aren't there? There's a lot of things that are 2 damage now.
Yeah.
So it's. I think that's a real challenge, but that's not a Knights thing. It's just that Knights have that ability.
Yeah, no, they are not. They are far from the only thing that has that.
Exactly, and I think -1 damage can be a really challenging thing, but where it becomes a very, very challenging thing, and this is the thing we need to remember, is that the 10 Armiger single Questoris build lets you have 120 wounds of Armigers.
Yeah, and so the ratio is just perhaps a bit too much by way of cheap 5 obsec bodies running around.
That's an awful lot of wounds to chew through, isn't it? Particularly when they're -1 damage, they're growing wounds back.
Yeah. Do you think that's where you'd start?
There's another 24 wounds of PA in the army as well. You've got trans-hitman, transhuman all over the place.
Because that makes it all go so much further as well, doesn't it?
It really does. It goes further than it should. And I think at the moment, Imperial Knights, especially when we look at the way that Games Workshop have been adjusting armies. Yeah. They've been reducing armies' damage potential. And they've been making and if they're not good enough, they've been increasing their ability to score secondaries.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
And Knights are not a statistical problem because there are so many bad lists out there that don't.
So they're not going to flag up to them, really.
It's not going to get flagged that way. And the armies that we've just spoken about as being real problems are the kind of armies that are likely to take a bit of a hit.
Yeah.
So my fear, if we're talking from a sort of pure balance perspective, because again, you want to go to a tournament where if everything goes as you expect, you go 3-2. That's what.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Stuart's always saying this. We should be expecting to lose as many as we win if we've got it right.
And at the moment, I don't feel that way with this army.
No, and you're a pretty good gauge because you tend to know what you've got.
The army feels very 4-1 to me, but also has the potential to go 5-0 if you get the right draws.
Absolutely, yeah.
And all the things that I think are likely to be a major problem for it: double Catan Necrons, Sisters, Super Punchy CSM, potentially. Although I don't think that's just a really good game. I think. But the Iron Hands, probably isn't going to get touched because, well, it's like Nassim, isn't it? And then,
I don't think it's kind of got its little core of people, and that's it.
And I think it's good that every now and then there's a rock paper scissors where actually it's not rock paper scissors. you're a bit of paper and it's scissors, and that's
it's more like my nemesis is here, right?
You know what? If you draw your nemesis, you draw your nemesis.
Yeah.
Tower, an interesting one.
Yes, because I would have thought that would be an issue, but it's not how you felt about it, is it? You've kind of found it okay
with the 10 Armigers, like hammerheads. They might fail to kill one.
Yeah,
which then means the second one's got to shoot at it,
which is nuts. Like you're already stuck 2 hammerheads out. Like
and those 2 hammerheads are dead.
Yeah, they're gone.
Like one Helverin takes out a hammerhead.
Yeah,
and he's got a friend.
Yeah,
so you've got to play it super well as a Tau player. Now I get to practice with a very good Tau player in Kyle, because we both live locally.
Yeah,
and he's run some lists that become very challenging, because he's got what I like to call his peekaboo Tau, where you run a double Riptide and the Crisis Bomb.
Yeah,
and that's 3 firing and fading units a turn.
That makes a big difference. Yeah,
and 2 hammerheads. So you just have to pick when's you go turn, and then you go turn. You can pick up 5-6 Armigers, and it's done. So Tau are also a problem, but Tau equally have a bunch of very, very difficult matchups.
They do.
So then I don't mind that there being some of that in the meta, because there's so many armies that that's going to happen.
That's how it should be. Yeah.
My fear with the Knights, as I say, is that some of the natural predators get nerfed, but
like further nerfed,
because on paper they're not that good.
Yeah,
because of some of the builds.
But you can see that there's something lurking there. Yeah,
and the other thing is that actually they are oppressive against some other armies.
Yeah,
so they do lead to that feel bad.
Yeah.
You can't really take a mechanized army against that many melters and Helverins.
No.
That's that mobile.
No.
So that's the problem, and I think that's why it's so inherently difficult to balance, and why people will always look at Knights and go, Knights are fine in the meta when they're bad.
Yeah.
And this Freeblade list is not bad.
No, it's very, very good. Very, very good.
Yeah, I think we'll have to wait and see, won't we? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, no, I think
over the next 2 or 3 months.
I share your feelings about it, and I think Knights play an important role, and I think it's nice to have. We talk about skew, but every army at its heart is a skew of a kind, right? And played by most people, no matter what you run, you end up doing most of the stuff that you're good at, and that's the way that 40k plays. And a good meta with 40k is, as you say, when maybe you hit that thing that's the perfect counter to you, maybe you don't, but it's all out there together in flux, and it works. And
there will always be a perfect counter. I think where Knights become controversial is they force you to put something into your list in case you hit them.
Yeah, because that was the thing in 8th when I first started playing. Can you kill a knight? So it's that kind of. Do you have enough stuff to kill a knight? All that stuff.
That was the first question, wasn't it? Oh, can you kill a knight?
Yeah.
Whereas
exactly
now it's, can you deal with 120 wounds of Obsec Knights?
Yeah. Can you chew through a bunch of Armigers in time to win the game? And it's interesting. Well, look, Andrew. I know you've got the Invitational coming up, the Unconquerables.
Yeah.
So the Knights are going to be maybe getting a run out for that. So that's very exciting. So
I don't think it'll be. I know some people will be protecting what they're playing, but I don't think it'll be any surprise to anyone that I will be running Knights.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm very much looking forward to that, and we will have some fun with that. But thank you very, very much for coming on. It's been brilliant to chat to you, and yes, we'll wait and see with Knights. As you say, it's nice to see them out and about. It's nice to see the book doing well, and it's nice, as you say, that you can build these incredibly laborious puzzles for your opponent to figure out. But we'll just wait and see how they shape up or against other things.
And I think credit to GW for taking something that's traditionally been quite dull.
Yeah,
I mean, like, it's literally you picked relics. That was about it.
Yeah.
And giving something power. But at the moment, I think, across the average meta, particularly the non-competitive meta, they're going to be too strong.
Yes, for sure.
And I think that's the other thing that people forget, isn't it? Not everybody's playing competitive 40k.
No, indeed not.
I think Knights are very difficult into a less competitive meta.
For sure.
Because people.
Well, that's often where they get their feedback.
Knights, and it's.
Yeah. So we'll wait and see. I think that there's a lot to be commended about the way balance has been approached over the last few months. So I think there's plenty to be hopeful about in that sense. And fingers crossed, as and when, if anything is changed, there's still plenty there for you to play with and keep getting stuck in with your big stompy boys.
I'm going to keep playing my. I'll probably sort of bounce between them and Grey Knights, because Grey Knights are just the exact opposite. And I think if you once you hit a certain place in 40k, if you stay in the same place too long, I don't think it's necessarily healthy for your
not at all.
Growth as a player.
You've got to keep moving.
Stay somewhere for a while to establish, but then there comes a point when a bit of movement is good, and Grey Knights and Knights are just it's fantastic as
so different
as a pair of armies to be running. It really does. I think Grey Knights are in a really they're not in a bad place. They're I think pretty middle of the road in terms of most things, and I think that if we were hitting the kind of level of Grey Knights across the board,
then that'd be a good spot.
That would be a good spot. But at the moment, I have no. I always think about, would I beat myself with my opponent's list? And I cannot come up with a Grey Knights list that there's a sort of mortal wound spam list that you can do. With loads of purifiers that would be a problem for a bit, but I think I can't see a good way of building a tournament army with Grey Knights that does work into Knights. So so maybe they are just a bit much.
We shall see. We shall see before long. But thank you so much for coming on. And thanks very much for listening, everybody. And we will see you again next time.